arrive. So hi everybody, my name is Joyce Dalgleish. I work for the Data Division within the Scottish Government, and it's my absolute pleasure to be here and work with the Data Lab to help host these events. Oh, I see there's some chat that's just slightly distracting me. Some people have got no sound.
Yeah, it seems like there's an issue with sound.
Oh,
I can
lots
hear
of people.
you.
Yeah. How strange. Paul, do you know? Oh, but then on the other hand, there's some, Antonia saying she can hear fine. Yeah, some too. Okay, so for the people who are not got sound, it might be worth just coming in and out. We'll let you back in again because there's a bit of a mixed economy here. Okay, so those that are, I mean, I don't know, I mean, maybe I could do this in sign language, but okay, hopefully people notice kind of come out and come in again. Right, so maybe just put that in the chat. Yeah, I know it's mixed economy. I know, given the topic of today, huh? I'll put this in the chat. Just putting that in. Okay, right. Okay, so as I said, it's my pleasure to sort of bring this event to you, and I do that in conjunction with colleagues in the community at the Data Lab. And we've been offering these events for like probably about a year now. I don't know exactly, but we use this as an opportunity to showcase some of the really exciting things that people are doing to support the public sector. So, you know, one of the things about the public sector is we get to work on some really interesting problems, and we've had a whole range of different speakers coming, and I'm really excited about the one that we've got today, which I'll say more about in a moment. So there's just some housekeeping for us. So this event is being recorded, so that's cameras and microphones will be switched off during the presentation for everybody, hopefully not the speakers, judging by the people who were struggling to hear earlier on. The recording will be made available through the Data Lab's YouTube channel, and that'll be a kind of unlisted video which you can rewatch and share with colleagues. If you could put questions in the chat as we go along, it just makes it easier to kind of pick them up at the ends more speedily as you know, as people are putting their hands up. And it also is like it might be in a moment in time when the question comes to you and you want to get it down there while you still remember. I mean, we might even be able to answer some of them as we go along. We'll take as many as the ones that we can, you know, as many as we can during the session, and then if there's anything we can follow up, we'll absolutely will do that afterwards. And any slides or material that the team share, we can put that onto the Data Lab community. So I think what's interesting about today is that this is, you know, you've heard of, you know, where you buy two, you get one free. Well, this is absolutely this event in a nutshell, because not only is it a community event, it's part of the finance theme for the Data Lab, so tick one, which is great. It's also part of it's also part happening during the FinTech Scotland Festival and the very first National Innovation Week. So wow, you know, we've got a triple word score here going on. So, but I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to hand over to the team from Smart Data Foundry who's going to take you through this really fascinating project that they're doing. So I have to do a little bit of handing over using the technical, so I'll do that. So bear with me while we switch over virtually.
Thank you.
And take the slides off, and I will disappear shortly.
Thank you, Joyce.
There we go.
Hopefully my sound is working okay for everyone. Hopefully the ones that had issues could solve it earlier. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon now. Our presentation is about harnessing smart data for good, real-time insights into economic well-being. From Smart Data Foundry, Rui Cardoso, head up public sector engagement at Smart Data Foundry. And I'm here with my colleague Stacey, who heads up the product at Smart Data Foundry, and you'll hear from our products in a little bit. But to start off, let me explain to you what Smart Data Foundry is, what we're here to do. So if we could go to the next slide, Stacey. Smart Data Foundry has been founded in 2000. and 22, and with the objective to open data for good. More specifically, finance data, but more and more we're providing with our products access to other data like public sector open data and other open data sets that are out there. But it's been mostly focused on that finance data and understanding real-time insights into the economy, into people's spending patterns, and into people's income. To understand a little bit more, especially going with the cost of living crisis.
Sorry to interrupt, just getting the slides there. Thank you.
Perfect. And there you go. Hopefully you can see the slides now. We're a not-for-profit subsidiary of the University of Edinburgh, but we open up private sector, consumer, and small business financial data for research, policy, and service delivery. And this will make a little bit more sense in a little bit as we explain the data sets that we have and the ways to access them. We've been working in partnership with some strong partners like the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, Sage, NatWest Group. NatWest Group is going to be a little bit of the focus today, especially around the data sharing that they have with us. We focus on two main key areas. Maybe I'll share my screen. We've been having a little bit of issues, so you can follow along a little bit better. And there you go. So we work on two key areas, one and all around the economy, one around reducing poverty and inequality. Our data inspire researchers in terms of delivering insights around critical issues like fuel poverty, child poverty, income volatility, and focusing on things around regional views and local views, so we can be really tailored to policy creators or to researchers to actually understand meaningful insights that they can then contribute to decision making and development of interventions either by public sector, charities, NGOs, etc., and to improve and to keep on top of evolving outcomes. On the other hand, somewhat related, of course, improving economic well-being. We work with companies like Sage, for example, and we analyze quarterly SME data to understand things like the small business productivity, revenue, and that goes into government bodies and into other more local and regional bodies to understand a little bit about the granularity of the economy as well. We work in the intersection of different sectors, as I mentioned. So we have our data that especially comes from private sector institutions. As you see some of the logos there on the purple side of the circle. We have data from NatWest, which will go into detail about what that is today and what you can see from that. But also have other partners, Virgin Money, Sage, I've also mentioned in terms of small businesses data. But we work in that intersection. So this data has been for long held in the private sector, but with the moving economy and as things develop, it's important to start making that data available for decision makers, both in the public sector and other important sectors. So we work with academia. We make our data available for researchers through a trusted research environment. That data can be accessed for studies, longitudinal studies around poverty, causes of poverty, relation between finances and other aspects of life, like health, for example. We work with NGOs as well. We make our data available for NGOs to try to understand a little bit more of the communities that they are serving. Also with organizations like Joseph Rowntree Foundation, as part of their quarterly economic commentary, we provide some granular financial data to inform their insights as well. And with public sector, more and more, we've been working with public sector by providing some of the products that we will see today to organizations like local authorities, central government, and even regional governments. It's more of a thing in England than in Scotland. But more and more, this data is being recognized as being really useful, timely, granular data to actually understand a little bit about the economy, not just in the old sense of understanding the levels of income that people have, but going into granularity of how the cost of living raises is affecting people in different areas of the country. So we look into not only income data, but also expenditure data into some categories that can make people understand a little bit more, not just that people are struggling, but how exactly are people struggling, and some of the differences between, for example, urban areas and more rural areas as well. But that'll be very, very clear once we show our demo of our products as well. So what kind of financial data is available? As I mentioned, it goes into income data, so we can understand levels of income. We can understand also the source of the income. How much income is coming from salary, from benefits, or from pension. We have a wide range of people in the sample, so 5 million records in the sample. Of course, all of this is de-identified accounts, so you can't understand anyone's personal income, but it's about that grouping of accounts at high level, for example, at postal data zone level or local authority level, that gives you those insights. We also can understand cash balances at the end and beginnings of the month. We can understand what accounts are being overdrawn consistently. And then, as I mentioned, those demographics. So we can, for example, locate some of the metrics that we create on a map, and it can be explored by the users of our products through location and through filters like age ranges and other filters. But we also look at expenditure, and this is probably maybe the biggest innovation that we brought is we're not just looking at how much people are receiving, but we're looking at the nuances of the differences of expenditure. So we can look at different categories like mortgage, rent, utilities, but also looking into more specific categories like how much is spent on travel, how much is spent on energy, how much is spent on different categories that help you have a better understanding of the different nuances of the economy. The challenge that traditional data sources brought, and we're trying to get ahead of that and create a solution, is that the economy is now changing faster than ever. In terms of the last few years, we've had COVID, we've had energy crisis, we've had cost of living crisis, and all of that really deeply affects people live, on the ground with changing circumstances in their lives. Um, this means that we don't always get accurate and up to date, in traditional data sources. We don't actually have that up to date reality of people's lives, but our hope and our what we've been working towards is to bring in this newer data set that brings that granularity and that timeliness as we receive the data. For example, from NatWest, we receive the data every week, so we're looking at last week's transactions at a high level, and we're not waiting, a year for the new report to come out so we can start thinking about the future. For us, financial data is a resource for social change. And by making this data accessible for the first time, we're currently impacting in terms of research. So there's a lot of interest from the research community on how our data can almost augment to the studies that we've already been doing by giving that granularity and timeliness. And for decision making in policy, we've been talking to local authorities. Our product, the Economic Wellbeing Explorer, has been heavily tested and tried with a local authority in Scotland, and now we're expanding to other local authorities all across the UK, based on the first experiment. And also with national government, as things start changing more and more quickly, it becomes more and more relevant to look at the type of data that we have. The power of smart data is, just to explain it in a way that I think anyone could understand, anytime we tap our cars, anytime we have an expense, that impacts us and that leaves a digital footprint. So that's the type of transactions that we can see from our data. Of course, this data is aggregated, so it's not about any individual, but it's about understanding how different locations and different groups of population are being affected by the economy, and that digital footprint becomes a very useful resource for governments to understand that a little bit more. We're using this financial data, like I mentioned, to inform evidence-based policy. So with East Renfrewshire Council. They've used this data to understand a little bit more about their locality, to understand more about hidden poverty. For example, that's become very useful so they can target their resources and their service provision a little bit better for the right people. Because the data keeps coming every week, we can track impact over time. It allows us to pivot quickly. It allows us to not waste resources by waiting a year for the next data tranche, to understand that in that real time level. And it's used to improve service delivery. So this access to this data allows service providers to be a bit more targeted without they spend their dwindling resources more and more, and to uncover those economic unknowns. It's useful to confirm things that you already knew with the data and be more data-driven about those assumptions. I think it's even more useful when you see the data in this way to actually uncover the things that we weren't in the know about, and actually make the policy stronger overall by uncovering that information. As I mentioned, you'll hear now from Stacy. She's gonna talk us through our products. I understand there's already a few questions, but I think we'll save those for the end. So I'll pass it on to Stacy now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Harry. And thank you for running with the slides as well. So lovely to be here today. As Huey's mentioned, I'm head of product at Smart Data Foundry, and by product, all we essentially mean is how we are kind of delivering some of these data insights to users in a way that solves problems and hopefully helps drive impact. One of the ways that we're doing this is through our Economic Nowcast, which is an openly available data source that is on our kind of main smartdatafoundry.com website. And essentially what our Nowcast does is allows for tracking critical economic wellbeing indicators in near real time. So we have 3 indicators that we publish at the moment, 2 of which, the living beyond means and the average weekly income, are published on a monthly basis, and the last one, small business productivity, being published on a quarterly basis. These are intended to provide kind of a month-on-month view for users that we've broken down, as you can see on the screen here, into a national level as well. So you can see these across Scotland, England and Wales, as well as a GB total. But each indicator is intended to give a view as to how people are actually living within Great Britain. Living beyond means is essentially looking at people that are spending more than the income that's being received into their account. Average weekly income is looking at the average income that's received into an account based on salary, pensions and benefits, and small business productivity is a measure of how productive employees are to a business's overall revenue. Living beyond means and average weekly income are based on consumer data set that we receive from one of our flagship data partners, NatWest, and the small business productivity one is based on data that's received, as Huey mentioned previously, from one of our other flagship data partners in Sage. This is just providing kind of an overall snapshot view, like I say, that's updated regularly. For kind of further detail, we've created the Economic Wellbeing Explorer, as Huey's mentioned. That is based on a pilot that we'd run originally with East Renfrewshire Council, and it was quite a targeted pilot with them. Since then, what we've done is extended this out to cover the entirety of Scotland, providing a map-based platform that can offer insights at a more local or neighbourhood level. That looks at kind of key financial indicators and allows you to compare those against contextual indicators. I will be doing a bit of a demo of this tool as well shortly. We are planning to extend the coverage of this out to the whole of GB as our Nowcast covers, and we're expecting that to be available from November onwards. If you just jump to the next slide, please, Huey. The level of granularity that we are providing the insights from our data at is national level. So currently we were exposing this at Scotland level, regional level, which we're exposing at the kind of 6 regions that make up Scotland according to the International Territorial Levels, or ITL2. And then we're also providing it to users on subscription at a local level, which provides insights at local authority district level, and at intermediate zone, or as we kind of commonly refer to it, a neighbourhood level. So you can really start to see how people are living within neighbourhoods within a local area. I think the next slide is actually moving on to the demo. So we're going to attempt another screen share. So just bear with me 1 second while I get that set up. Hopefully everybody can see a map on my screen. Huey, would you mind just confirming that, please? I can't see the...
Yeah, we can see it.
Super, thank you very much. So this is our Economic Wellbeing Explorer tool. And as I've kind of mentioned, what this allows you to do is interrogate financial data against contextual data to see insights around a certain area, be that at national, a regional, or a local level. The way that this works is the tools based on the financial data is based on 5 million kind of consumer data set. For Scotland, that's roughly 565,000 accounts. The data that we receive is effectively anonymised, so it is at account level, and we aggregate it up from data zone level up to kind of the zones that I had on screen before, so intermediate zone, ITL2 and ITL1 level. 565,000 accounts is roughly slightly higher than 10% of the Scottish population. The circle size, and this will make more sense as I start to zoom in, the circle size is reflective of the financial indicator that is being selected, and the circle colour is reflected of the contextual data that is being selected. So what you're looking at here is really two indicators against each other. So for the whole of Scotland, we can see that there are 11% of people that are living beyond their means, and the proportion of kind of disabled or long-term health households for the whole of Scotland is probably sitting within that kind of 8.22 to 11.12%. If I zoom in, we start to see that kind of regional breakdown. As I said, we're covering kind of the 6 regions of Scotland, and that's where we're starting to see some slight differences in terms of contextual indicators and also our circle sizes. The financial wellbeing indicators that we have available at the moment is people with overdrawn accounts. So this is essentially people over a month-long period that are going into a negative account balance twice or more within the month. People that are living beyond their means, this is one that we were also showing at a high level of granularity on our Nowcast, and this is people that are spending 20% more than the income that is being received into their account. And the last one that we have currently available is people with low emergency resilience. So this is people who have in 2 or more instances in a month-long period, less than £100 in their account. So these people might be more susceptible to a short-term or an unexpected shock, such as an oven breaking down or a car breakdown or something along that lines. We do have, as Huey's mentioned, the data that we receive that currently powers this dashboard is quite extensive in terms of the income and the expenditure categories that we see that data at, highly granular in that we receive it on a weekly basis as well. So indicators that we're looking to release in the near future is looking at people that have a high proportion of income that's received from benefits, people that have a high level of essential expenditure in a month, and also looking at disposable income for people as well. If we go even further down, we're starting to then be able to see this data presented at a local authority district level. So again, we're seeing it for the whole of Scotland here. And if I select a different indicator, we'll see that some of the circle sizes do change color, do change size there as well. This really just allows you to see at a kind of a local authority level what your kind of average is. So for Edinburgh, we're looking at just over 50,000 accounts in the sample. And in terms of the metrics, there 13% of people experiencing overdrawn accounts, 12% of people living beyond their means, and 31% of people that are deemed to have low emergency resilience. The data is updated on a monthly basis. So the data that we have in here is kind of going to the very start of August. But you can look at the data kind of going backwards in weekly increments. So if I just kind of go back a week there'll be some slight changes there. Going into the data even further, so I just want to hone in on kind of an example. I'm going to use Edinburgh because I live here, so it's the area that I'm most familiar with. What we can then start to see is our indicators at this neighbourhood view. So we're really seeing differences here in terms of the circle sizes, but also in terms of the contextual data and the circle colouring. So in terms of people that live beyond their means, in Newtown West, we've got a much higher proportion of people living beyond their means than in, Craigmillar, for instance. And some other areas that we can kind of see are more on the outskirts of the city. The contextual data that we've loaded in is really just to try and give a bit of a way to see if there's any linkage between kind of housing or education or other categories of data against financial data. The data that we've currently loaded into the tool is demographic data. So we're looking at, as I've touched on, disabled long-term health households, young mothers, families with dependent children, youth population, where there's a high proportion of youth population as well. And so what we can start to see is the areas that kind of meet this contextual data and how their finances are kind of impacted against that. We also load in housing data to see, for instance, use cases such as retrofitting houses to meet net zero ambitions. So we're looking at home sizes, energy efficiency of housing, and average house prices as well. We've also got some education data here on school attainment. I will say that this contextual data is actually being updated in this month, and we'll be looking at education from a kind of highest level of qualification received at different points in a schooling career, going from kind of no qualifications up to degree level of qualification. And we do load in some SIMD data. At the minute, we've got GP public transport time, GP driving time, and primary school driving time. And again, this is in part to support some of the use cases that we've been working with councils on. We do allow councils to load in their own data. This particular council doesn't have the data loaded in, so that's why we're seeing blue dots. But the type of data that can be loaded in is things such as, clients that are seeking money, advice and rights, council tax indebtedness, free school meals, to support use cases that specific users might have or want to be able to see against the financial data. Just go back to some demographic data there. This kind of view is really just allowing you to look at a particular point in time in a really visual way to try and understand where there might be areas that might need a little bit more support, where you could target specific interventions against. It also might help you reinforce things that you know about particular areas as somebody that offers services to areas, or it might allow you to uncover areas where there are more people struggling than you would expect. So I think if we look at the living beyond the means, we've got quite a high proportion in some areas which are classed as very affluent areas, which may be an indication that people are perhaps kind of stretching themselves in order to maintain a lifestyle within this particular area and might not know about some services or support that might be available to them. Whereas on the flip side, you might have areas where there is known deprivation, and people are kind of struggling in terms of being able to meet some short-term economic shocks, again, that you might want to make sure that you're targeting with specific support as well. We do allow for the data to be looked at over time, so you can start to see whether there are any trends emerging. So if I just select some kind of areas and I want to look at it against the Scotland average as a whole, I want to look at the data against a regional average. So I'm going to select East Central Scotland, select Edinburgh, and I'm just going to pick two areas in Edinburgh that I know of. So Murrayburn and Wester Hailes and Murrayfield and Ravelston. And what I can start to see here is kind of how areas are looking against each other, but also against kind of your more regional, national or local authority level averages. I can filter this as well. I can do this on the map too, to kind of see whether there's kind of specific age ranges that are impacted. So if I'm looking at this kind of Murrayburn and Wester Hales North line, if I look at all age bands against those that are within the 18 to 39 age range, I see that that's actually tracking higher for that age range, albeit that seems to be a trend across all of these areas as well. And I can also look at it across income bands. So how are people that are, earning under £25,000, are they more or less susceptible to having low emergency resilience than people that might be earning a slightly higher salary? So I can start to interrogate in that way as well. In order to make sure that I can look at whether there's any specific trends that might be seasonal or any fluctuations that I might know about, I can compare this data on a yearly basis as well, and we can see it's quite interesting actually that it's relatively consistent with last year across all of these areas that I'm looking at. We're starting to see a slight downtick in this particular area, but it's very much in line with previous years. Whereas if I look at a different indicator, there might be slightly more fluctuation against that trend line, which might tell me that people are, I suppose, changing some of their trends. It's probably more similar in this one, albeit it is tracking slightly low, which is a good thing. Less people living beyond their means. So kind of want to kind of continue monitoring and seeing how that looks, and it is quite stable across the entire of the areas that I'm looking at. But essentially this is just allowing me to interrogate the data that Smart Data Foundry have in a little bit more of a meaningful way to the area that I work in, to hopefully be able to kind of answer questions or support theories that I might have about an area to be able to deliver services or support some of the choices I want to make about services that are being delivered to that area. So that's our tool. That's one of the ways that we're presenting this data to users. So I'll stop my screen share there and hand back to Joyce.
I'll share my slides again because it's got
a
QR code.
Yeah.
So we have a let me put it up. We have an available version that you can join. It won't let you go to. Oh, we're both click and you click.
There we go.
There you go. So if you scan that QR code, it will take you to My Foundry, which is our portal where our product is hosted. You won't be able to see the full granularity because we need to protect this data and only let the people who are supposed to have access, like people who work in the public sector or accredited researchers, to access the data. But you'll be able to see the national and regional granularity on the data for Scotland at the moment, so that you can get some insights out of that. If you'd like to see more of it, do get in touch with us, and there'll be contact buttons in the portal as well that you can send us an email, and we'll be happy to organize a demo and to discuss the possibilities of access and how we can go on about it. So there's a few questions already, but I'll hand over to Joyce.
Yeah, brilliant. Listen, thank you both so much for such a great presentation, and what a fascinating piece of work that this is, and such richness there. So we've got some questions here, and I think maybe some of them, that's always the thing when you start going through the presentation, they've been answered. So Mishra's asked a question: is Smart Data Foundry some kind of centralized data repository? Would you describe it in those terms?
Yeah, I think we have partnerships with financial institutions, and by no means we demand exclusivity of being a central repository. By nature of our work and our security systems, we've been gaining the trust of these financial institutions, and more we're having more conversations to become that centralized repository. But there's a lot of organizations providing different flavors of different types of data out there, and our attitude, so as a not-for-profit that is doing data for good, is about collaborating. And if there's other data services out there, we think the power of correlation is where we get the bigger insights. So I guess I didn't really answer, but
You did. That's great. Super. And Conrad's asked a question from the collaboration with the banking sector across the UK, and asking what's working well now. So you collaborate with, you mentioned earlier on about NatWest, and what's working well, what could be better? Maybe this is your wish list, I don't know. And is there anything you're missing and trying to obtain? And maybe there's an offer in there, I don't know.
Yeah. So that's a great question. So the partnership with NatWest, and I think from the title there is someone from NatWest, so thank you, Conrad. The partnership with NatWest has been great. We've had this partnership for a while, and that's the reason that allowed us to do some of these products and to actually try to understand what are the needs of the market, in which way the data can be displayed for different audiences that can be more useful. So that's been fantastic. The partnership has augmented as well. It started off with 1.3 million records and with limited categories, so we could only see things like the data aggregated into discretionary or essential expenditure. Now we have 5 million records across Great Britain, and that's a testament to the work we've done to make this data accessible but also protected. So the right level of granularity exposed, so it protects people but actually gives meaningful insights as well. And we also have bigger granularity, which into the future, as we launch more and more metrics and get involved in different projects, will become more and more useful, especially when it comes to going from having one category for essential expenditure, for example, and then splitting that up into the different aspects of essential expenditure, because there's a lot of nuance on how people spend their money. There's a lot of nuance on how much things cost in different areas as well. So that expansion of categories has been very useful. In terms of what could work better is the more data we have, the more accurate our insights will be. So we've been on that journey to bring in not only different financial institutions, but different products as well from financial institutions. So at the moment, we're looking at current accounts. We think understanding more about credit and pensions will help us understand more of how people are maybe patching up their finances from other sources. So there's still work to do, and in terms of bringing more data into this picture. But the partnership itself has been working really well. NatWest has been super involved in this. We have some demos for NatWest. Some of the teams started using our dashboard as well, which has been great. And also the Sage partnership has been great. It started with just providing us with a small sample of smallish 110,000 SMEs for our quarterly report, but now we're in conversations to really augment that. I can't say too much yet, but to really augment that to be really meaningful about business data, about salary data as well. So I think we start slow, but we've been seeing that progress with the data partnerships. That has been really fantastic. And of course, if you have any data within your control, then we'd be happy to have that chat to see how we can access that. You're muted, Joyce.
I turned my sound off because it was noisy behind me, but I was just going to say there's nothing that data people like more than more data. So anybody out there, it'd be great to hear. And I have to say that having seen this for the first time, maybe a couple of years ago, I think now, when Rui was presenting at an event, the difference in it, it was amazing then, but actually the what you've done to it, and this, I love the idea that you've started small and built and learned what people wanted and what was useful, and keep on building on that, and and obviously clearly very open to that going forward. Now I'm going to jump to Gil next, who's got a very technical question, which is the data solution. Is this a data solution provided by ISIL, BigSpart, or different? That might be a quick answer. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's actually a really relevant question.
Okay,
So
okay.
The data solution has nothing to do with ISO and BigSpart. Smart Data Foundry had something to do with ISO. We created ISO as a synthetic data resource back a few years back. This is not a synthetic data resource. This is real data. So the solution is nothing to do with each other. ISO is now being managed by BigSpark as a synthetic data resource. So if you're looking for synthetic data, do get in touch with BigSpark about ISO. It's a great product, but we no longer deal with synthetic data. We deal with real data for real insights into the economy. We realized it wasn't, the same type of market, so we decided to split ways. But that's a great question. I'm glad to make that differentiation in case you've heard about Smart Data Foundry through ISO in the past. That's now the difference.
Yeah, that's great, because actually your team came to speak to some of our people about synthetic data when you were doing that work. So yeah, that's really, I'm glad that came up. Now there's a question here, actually, I think again maybe another quick one, which is you did mention SIMD. So people might be familiar with SIMD, which is the Scottish Index of Multiple, is it deprivation? Am I right? Maybe, which is often used in health analysis. So I don't know. I think you kind of alluded to that, Stacey. Were you? I think you mentioned that.
Yes, we have a couple of SIMD indicators that we're kind of looking at the data against at the minute, and we have a roadmap to be adding in additional SIMD indicators as well. At the moment, again, based on what's driving value for our users. So great question. There's a few in there already. The plan is that there will be more in there. And as we extend to kind of GB as well, we'll be including WIMD and EIMD indicators in that as well. I probably should have mentioned kind of during the demo there that the kind of contextual data that we're loading in at the moment, the majority of it is open source data coming from Census, Scottish Government, and the great resources that are available there, as well as the indices of multiple deprivation.
Brilliant. And yeah, we're a big fan in our team. We're big fans of open data and making more data open. So that's also fantastic to hear. And I was going to say, again, it's back to a technical question about your technical tool stack for geospatial.
I'm happy to answer that one as well, Hui. I'm just wanting to make sure that I've got the right. I'm just checking I don't want to say anything wrong here, but essentially the kind of tooling that we are using on this data, as I've mentioned, the kind of geographies we're looking at is aligned with our international territorial levels, which is most commonly used for looking at data statistically, and the tooling that we use is R and Shiny for data visualizations, and I suppose the geospatial visualizations are part of that. We do use kind of our mapping of, as I've said, data zone upwards, and we apply the boundaries of data through kind of open source lookup tables that are made available via the ONS. We do a little bit of kind of our own mapping as there's some kind of differences between certain areas, and that will be kind of a bit more extensive as we do move into GB and the kind of complexities of some of the English in particular kind of council structures, but a lot of it is openly available kind of boundary levels that we're kind of using to map the data visually in our map.
Great. Now I've been looking at the chat, and I have neglected the Q&A here, which is another way of adding a question. And we've got two questions in there. So one, which is, what is the process to access the aggregate and individual level data via the trusted research environment? Is this via the ONS SRS, or I don't know, I mean, Office of National Statistics? I'm not sure what the SRS means, but maybe you do and maybe can answer that.
I'm happy to answer this one as well, Hui. The process for accessing aggregate versus individual level data is that our aggregate data is available within our data catalogue that's in My Foundry or portal. We'll make sure that links are shared after this call as well, so that you can go and have a look and see what's in the data catalogue. And that's reflective of, I suppose, the data that we're making available throughout the tool as well. Access to the aggregate level data in the tool is available via subscription for the more local or neighbourhood level, or it's available just by application on the portal for national and regional level. Individual level or account level data is housed within our safe haven environment, within the trusted research environment. It is different to the ONS their trusted research environment, essentially. Ours is hosted via Edinburgh University's EPCC, or Edinburgh University's Parallel Computing Centre, and the process to apply for access to that data. Again, the kickoff point for that is within our portal, and we'll make sure links are sent out. But if you have a research project or a specific research question that you're looking to use this data to support the answering of, we'd essentially ask you to submit a research project brief. Very similar, I suppose, to kind of the ONS process, and that we'd be asking for ethics forms, just trying to make sure that, you know, we fully understand how you're intending to use the data to answer your question, to make sure that it meets kind of the data requirements that we have with our data partners, that are allowing for the data to be used in this manner. And then we'd essentially give you access to that controlled research environment where you would be able to kind of go in and interrogate the data. It's a very closed off environment with no kind of access to the outside world, but it is essentially a virtual machine. So you wouldn't have to go into a building or kind of a secure environment or anything like that. You would do it from your own device. That access process, I will say, can take, you know, kind of around 10 weeks end to end, and this is really just part of making sure that data remains very secure when it is at that account level basis.
Brilliant, that's lovely. And I noticed there's a little question asking about a couple of examples about how your data is being used, but I believe that you've got a lot of material, and I know you've got material on your website that gives some case studies, so we will definitely point people to that. I think now with 2 minutes to go, it falls to me now to kind of wrap up, and that is first of all to say a huge thank you to you both for like a fantastic presentation and for sharing this work that you've been doing. I hope that everybody is busily Googling Smart Data Foundry or scanning the QR code and going to come and get in touch with you and see how, you know, what you can do and what support either they can bring by bringing ideas for data sets or research ideas, or maybe coming from public sector. So that'd be great to see that happen. We are, I'm just going to, no, thank you very much, everybody. And what to say in closing now is thank you everybody for coming along to this. This event is kind of brought to you by the Data Lab and ourselves at Scottish Government. We have a public sector community, so if you've found this event and you've just signed up for it, please do sign up for the community, because that's where you see these things going on. It's a place for anybody to post any ideas or opportunities or looking for collaboration. So this is our kind of virtual notice board for everybody, so please come and join us there. We have 1,500 members, and we will, you know, it's great to see that community grow in size month on month. And one of the things you'll get to hear about is the themed events that the Data Lab are hosting. So next month, October, the theme is health, and Paul here from the Data Lab's already been posting up some really fab events, and he's going to be emailing about soon. So when you sign up, you get on the mailing list and you can see everything. And hopefully I will be back here hosting another event. I can't quite announce yet, but I hope to be able to do that very soon. We're just finalising some details and dates, but it'll be a similar sort of thing, something sub an hour with the brilliant presenters and a bit of chance for Q&A afterwards. So we're just a minute over time now, apologies, but thank you so much for coming and hope to see you again. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.